Otter, we talked about how the industry is fundamentally limited to how much impact it can actually make on this just by design. And I think of the many, many, many dimensions of that, this particular concept here has always seemed to resonate with people to understand how much regulatory training misses. Do you want to go ahead and talk us through that?
Yeah, and I'd like to just emphasize this is just one aspect of why loss of control in flight is an issue for pilots, right? So we're just touching on one of the areas here, but this graph is just designed to kind of help us, especially as pilots, visualize the issues that we are dealing with, and especially how the regulatory environment has approached it. Now, this graph is a vertical and horizontal graph showing all attitudes that you can get in an airplane. Now, kind of disregard the little buttons on the side and the little aircraft reference symbol in the center there, saying the most important thing I want you to understand is this is a graph of all attitudes that you can get in an airplane. Now, if you were flying in your airplane and I plotted you in the center of this graph, that would mean you're in straight and level flight. All right. Now, if you begin to pitch up, all right, then you would be working your way up the vertical axis. And in fact, all the way at the top of the axis, you're now 90 degrees nose up. That's right. And if you were to pitch down, then you would be working your way down on the graph. If you were to end up in a bank, say to the right, any type of bank angle, all the way to inverted. There goes all the way to far right. And then, of course, any bank angle to the left is on the left side. So I hope everybody can see how this graph works to show us how you could plot an airplane in any attitude. All right. Now, the green box you're looking at right now is showing what's defined for a transport category jet, the parameters which outside of these pitch and bank angles that this green box is showing would define it as an upset. All right, so you got to be more than 25 degrees nose up, more than 10 degrees nose down, and greater than 45 degrees angle of bank. All right, so most all of us flying jet transport category airplanes are trying to keep our airplane clearly within inside this box, and in fact, many times even a smaller box than this there. But it only represents about 5% of all attitudes that you can get in an airplane. Now, when we went through training as pilots and we were flying in our, Cessnas or Pipers or whatever normal category airplanes, we were actually only able to explore an additional 6% of the attitudes that you could get in an airplane. So up to no more than 60 degrees of bank or 30 degrees of pitch there. So that leaves roughly 90% of all attitudes that you could get in an aircraft that most pilots have never had a chance to experience in training, and certainly in training in a real airplane under the tutelage of a qualified UPRT instructor. And the problem is if a pilot does end up out in the red, which you could end up out in the red very easily in a matter of seconds due to a wake turbulence, for instance, now the conditions become abnormal, they become time critical, the cueing is unfamiliar and even unexpected for the pilot. Even the skills that he learned to keep his airplane in those smaller boxes now actually don't apply, and they're counterintuitive. And the instructing techniques that he learned or the instructor that taught him didn't even have the skill set himself to teach the proper technique. There. So in other words, the skills are absent there. And of course, the psychophysiological state of the pilot becomes altered. All right. You're no longer that calm, cool, collected Chuck Yeager you were a few seconds ago there. And now you are struggling to regain control.
And this is one of those diagrams, Otter, we could spend an entire session on, right? I think you did a fantastic job sharing that. So I think one of the interesting things here as we look at this is and you made a good point, is that the skills in the red the correct skills do transfer into the middle, but the skills that we have in the middle, the green and the orange, do not transfer to the red. In fact, we are completely unprepared, if not making the situation immediately worse. Like Todd mentioned earlier, that initial wrong reaction could really make it going from bad to worse to unrecoverable very, very quickly.